Good evening, members. Welcome to the Heritage, Culture and Leisure Committee, 28th of November 2017. Before we start on the agenda, may I take this opportunity to advise you that if the fire alarm does sound, please remain seated to enable ESI to assess the situation and give further instructions on the evacuation of the building if necessary. Hopefully this won't happen. It's too cold outside. Tonight's proceedings will be webcast by the Council, but if anyone else is intending to record these proceedings, can you please let me know now? I don't see anybody indicating. I ask this question not to stop you, but merely to ensure that members and other members of the public in the room know that this is taking place. Agenda item 1, apologies for absence. I have apologies for absence received from Councillor Mrs. Hinder. Agenda item 2, notification of substitute members. Are there any substitute members? Councillor Perry?
Councillor Perry for Councillor Hinder.
Thank you very much, Councillor Perry. Nice to see you as ever. Thank you. Agenda item 3, urgent items. There are no urgent items this evening, members. Oh, I should just introduce to my right, it actually is like a panel meeting, it's Billy Attaway from an apprentice from the legal department. So in case you're wondering, it's Billy and he's studying form here tonight. Keeping an eye on us legally, so... sorry, I said no urgent items this evening. Notification of visiting members. We are asked to approach the speakers' table, state their name and specify which agenda items they wish to speak on. Councillor Nagy.
Yeah, Councillor Nagy, Eastwood, and I'd like to speak on any item of those three, 11, 12, 13, 14, but I might not stay for 14, but if I'll make a note of it now, thank you.
Thank you very much. Are there any disclosures by members or officers? Are there any disclosures of lobbying? Agenda item 7, minutes of the meeting held on the 31st of October 2017. I will take the minutes page by page, and they're on pages 1 to 5, members. Page 1, page 2, page 3, page 4, thank you, and page 5. Councillor Ells.
Thank you, Chairman. I'm not disagreeing with the minutes. That's fine. I just thought page 5 was perhaps the time to do it. Just want to have a little bit of a whinge, if that's okay. I wasn't here for the meeting of the 31st of October because I was in Spain, and managed to get myself stuck in London for the P&R where the call-in came up. I watched P&R on webcam, and it was quite uncomfortable watching, quite frankly. Policy and Resources quite clearly had far more information than had come to this committee when a decision was made. I'm not saying information was withheld or anything, but they definitely had. They had email trails, they had far more paperwork and information than came to this committee for the original decision. And I do feel that it made this committee look on the webcam slightly foolish, possibly even slightly incompetent, quite honestly. Nothing wrong with P&R overturning it. In fact, I think that was the right decision, and it's the right way of going about things. I just feel that if we are now in a position where we can make these decisions, we need to make sure we have got all of the information that is available. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Ells. I think, as ever, it's a learning curve, and I think going forward we need, every time this committee meets, it does need all the information it can get before decisions are made. So I do agree with that comment. Thank you very much. Members, apart from that, do we agree the minutes as a correct record? Thank you very much. Just need to go to item 10 next, to consider whether any items should be taken in private because of possible disclosure of exempt information. As we have no Part 2 items on the agenda this evening, I propose that we take all items in public. Is this agreed, members? Thank you. Agenda item 9, presentation of petitions. There are no petitions this evening. Item 10, question and answer sessions from members of the public, and there are no question members of the public this evening. Right, members, come to my favourite slot, which is the good news section before we pass on. 20th of November, the DMP, or the Destination Management Plan, had its annual update, and on that day as well in the museum, the Mayor opened the new information centre. The DMP morning session, seminar and workshops were for tourism business, and I think some members did attend that, and I think probably found it quite informative. And the afternoon session was for all tourism stakeholders, and was updates and reports. And it was a very good afternoon, and it was a wealth of reports coming from different stakeholders. And I'll just give you a flavour of who spoke that afternoon. We had a speaker from Visit Kent. We had speakers from Maidstone Dementia Friendly Wrinkly Network, they called themselves, looking at Maidstone from a dementia point of view. The Maidstone River Park Partnership, they did a presentation on their update from when they started, and they've now got a team of 4 on that, so that was really encouraging to see that. Explore Maidstone, walks and cycling on the Medway towpath, that launched, so that was another education on the health and well-being of the borough. The Kent Life Heritage Farm Attraction did a very good presentation. And also, some of us were very lucky enough to go to Allington Castle because, as we know, the Kentish Lady organisers the boat on the river have almost said done a deal. It's probably about right. They've come up with a new visitor attraction. So Robert Worcester has agreed to open his castle, Tuesday afternoons from spring next year. You can only go by the Kentish Lady, you can't just go there, and it'll be groups. But he's agreed to do that, and I think that will put another jewel in our hat for visitor attractions in Maidstone. So look out for that. There are flyers available on that. So yes, the DMP, it was a very good day, and that was a 2-year update on where we are. And it built very good foundations going forward. We have another year to run on the DMP, but I think, and we got the message from that meeting that as I say, the foundations have been laid and a lot of good work has been done, especially on the river. And I've got down here, I don't know why I wrote this down, an old Mars advert, Work, Rest and Play, which is what it's designed to do. The museum's had very good coverage in our new Borough Insight magazine this month. I hope you've all seen that. That's the autumn version. And on the cover, actually, it's got the photograph, the winner from the photographic competition that won that award. So that went on the front cover this time. Back on November the 7th, we had a very moving memorial service in Hunton to reveal is not the word, the stone, Victoria Cross stone for Lieutenant Colonel Arthur Drummond Borton. Was unveiled by the Mayor at Hunton Village School, and Sergeant Bahari, the modern-day Victoria Cross holder, was there, and he also laid a wreath of poppies on that stone. So that was a very moving day, and it was well. And I would say that we have to thank Dawn next to me for her putting that together, Councillor Brian Mortimer, who headed it up, and Councillor Gordon Newton from the Stone Shop, who worked on the stone and also upgraded the grave there. So that's now looking restored and very good. So do go and have a look at Hunton and the village if you're that way, I'm sure. Just coming up, hopefully on the 16th of December, if all goes well, we shall have a live nativity in the town centre. It's a bit like the whole nativity scene going around the town, and I think the actual will be in Jubilee Square, the main part of the day. But the actual procession will go around the town from 1 till 4 p.m. on Saturday the 16th. And there will be live animals. I believe they've got a camel and a donkey and a few things. So that should be, it's a first for Maidstone apparently, no one else has done this. So that should be good. Hopefully we get a nice day for that. And just to remind you all, the pantomime Cinderella kicks off this week at the Hazlitt Theatre. Oh yes, it does. And stars. No one interrupted that. And it features Stephen Booth and Rusty Lee. So if you get an opportunity to go, do please go and promote it for Maidstone. So it's going to be good. I think that's all my good news, apart from just informing you that we have had an appointment now, Andrew Williams as the Parks and Open Spaces Manager. So hopefully he's taken post. Started on Monday. So that's filled that vacancy. So hopefully we'll get some moves there. Right, members. I forgot to mention when I was talking about the updates that we have put round the tables the destination management update leaflet. So do please digest those. It really does give a good report on what's been happening. Agenda item 11, committee work programme. On page 6, I have here. Anybody have any comments on the work programme, members? Councillor Naga, did you want to speak on this? You didn't indicate? Okay, thank you. Museum, yeah. There is a change on this one, members. The Museum Future Governance options won't come on the 18th of the 12th December, but it will come in January. Any further comments on the work programme? Thank you, members. Members, agenda item 12, Reference and Policy and Resources Committee, Budgeting, Monitoring, Parks and Open Spaces, on page 7. But I intend to take this reference alongside the agenda item that relates to, i.e. agenda item 13, second quarter budget monitoring 2017-2018, which would make sense. Is that agreed, members? Councillor Blackmore.
I'm sorry, Chairman. Bearing in mind that this was made on the 20th of September, why is it only coming here now? Because I think there was an HCL meeting on the 3rd of October and one on the 31st. So why has it taken 2 months?
I think because this report was coming in 20th of... Sorry.
Because Ellie's report was coming to this...
Sorry, Ellie's report is coming to this committee, so we thought to combine it rather than do a separate one. Sorry, we'll move on to item 13, And Ellie Dunnick will present this item, along with your first item. Thank you very much, Ellie.
Good evening, members. So this is the second quarter budget monitoring report for this committee, showing revenue and capital spending against the budget up to the end of September. The headline messages are that there is an overall positive variance of 237,000, which we're currently expecting to reduce to around 140,000 by the end of the year. Within the revenue budgets, which are shown in detail within Appendix 1 to the report, there are a small number of significant projected variances to draw your attention to. The first of these is in the market, where we're forecasting an adverse variance of 40,000 for the year end. This is a continuation of a trend we've observed previously of a decline in income levels, particularly for the Tuesday market. This is offset, however, by favourable variances within Moat Park Cafe, which has exceeded its income targets for the year to date, and also in Parks and Open Spaces due to early delivery of a savings target, which is due to be delivered next year. The other area which is highlighted for the committee's attention within the report and also within the reference from Policy and Resources is the slippage of 100,000 identified within the capital programme, which was for essential improvements to parks. It's felt that the use of the term essential in this line of capital programme was perhaps slightly misleading in that it implied that the works were urgent. We're assured by colleagues within that section that this isn't the case. So that word has now been removed from Appendix 2. There is a programme for completing ongoing improvements to parks, which is in place, and that's due to be delivered in its entirety by the end of 2019-20. And the reason why the work has slipped this year is due to the other major capital projects happening within Moat Park, which have diverted resources from the ongoing improvements. I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you, members. Do we have questions, please? Councillor Perry.
Thank you, Chairman. I'm just on page 10. I was just looking at the positive variances. I see bereavement services has got an increase in income, which is slightly worrying, but I don't quite think I would go there. Parks and open spaces, staff vacancies. Am I understanding that the savings, this will be part of the savings in the future, that these vacancies will not be replaced, the people, or are they going to remain? Are they going to be replaced? I'm not quite sure.
Dawn will take that for you. Thank you, Dawn.
Thank you, Chair. As Jenny Shepherd, the head of Park of that department, isn't here tonight, I'll try and answer the question. So this year we moved the management function of Parks and Open Spaces into Jenny Shepherd's department, and she has taken advantage of the restructure and combining of some roles and getting rid of duplication where the two roles between the management and the day-to-day maintenance were split to do some restructures within her team, and the savings are going to be made from posts that don't need to be filled. She's also carried some staff vacancies this year that have contributed to that.
Councillor Mrs Wilson.
Thank you very much, Mr Chairman. I'd like to pick up on the market first of all. This is not the first time, obviously, that we've seen about this overall trend taking place, but I'm not very happy about knowing that things are looking at, but no sort of time scale to actually know when we're likely to be given some more information. Because if this is a trend that we have observed in previous years, and it's not just here, it's a national trend, then I think we're going to have some very difficult, possibly, some very difficult decisions to make. And I think we should have some time scales in here, rather than just letting it sort of just wait. So that I'd like to propose that we do get some time scales in it. Reasonable, but some time scales in here, so even if it's only an interim feedback, so that we know exactly which way the wind blows or is possibly blowing. So that I'd like to pick up on. And I'm a little bit concerned about the parks issues, and it may be because I'm not understanding it correctly. But if we've got, I forget the word essential, but my question is, the slippage that's occurred, for what work is it? Is it work that should be normally done anyway, or is it work that we've identified that we want to do on top of normal? Because if it's the latter, I can understand it, because if you've got to pick and choose your priorities. But if it's slippage because we're using our resources to get something new off the ground and it's allowing normal work to slip, then I have some concerns around that. So I just wanted a little bit more information on that front.
Thank you, Councillor Wilson. I'll ask Dawn to respond to that. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. I'll take the CapEx one first. It's the easier one to answer. So the essential improvements, if committee remember, 2 years ago we did a 5-year capital expenditure forecast, and we were asked to put forward all the CapEx that we thought we would need across projects. And so we profiled all the work that we would need to do that required capital for the parks. And some of those were badged as essential improvements. And what they actually relate to is resurfacing of entry and exit roads, mainly into Moat Park. It's not essential work that needs to be done now, but it will need to be done in the 5-year capital budget programme. And we've taken the decision to do those works at the end of the other capital projects that are happening in Moat Park, because it wouldn't make any sense to repair roads and then have builders and contractors and construction traffic going over them. They're not in a bad condition at the moment, but we did identify that they would need to be repaired by 2021. 2020?
Yes, it has. Are you saying it's all related to Moat Park, or there? Because I mean, my question is: this says slippage relates to other parks' essential improvements, which, to my mind, is plural. And if we're saying it's the entrances to Moat Park, actually that makes utter sense, because you don't do it before you finish the work inside. So it's how we write English, perhaps. And if that is the explanation, I'm satisfied. But I don't think it's clear from that.
That is the explanation. It is just the works in Moat Parks. Nothing else is being held up or delayed where it's essential to be done in the current year. With regards to the markets, you're quite right. This has been a trend. We've had several pieces of work done over the 4 years that I've worked at the council that have all said the same thing, that general markets are declining nationally. The advent of the pound shop on the high street really was one of the major contributing factors to that happening. Our market is still profitable for us, and you can't look at it in isolation, because it's part of the Lock Meadow estate and the car parking and the small units that we have down there and the market hall. The team have been extremely good at raising the different income streams, so the market hall income has risen over the past few years as the market's declined. But we are at a point now, and the reason I asked Finance to put in this variance for this year, we are at a point where we've saturated that, and there really isn't anywhere to go with additional income from that estate. We have started the Jubilee Square Farmers Market once a month. We've just got planning permission to extend that, and we're hoping that we'll be able to get licensing permissions to enable us to extend that. And one of the things that we're doing to try and mitigate against this loss is to develop more of a farmers market in Jubilee Square, and if it gets popular enough, to expand it down into Lower High Street as well. So we're trying to do our best to get us out of this problem. But I think in the long term we are going to have to take a decision about that budget, and it will have to be reduced because it will not be achievable.
So a time scale for perhaps coming here to say, this is the trend, this is when we're likely to have to make some decisions, because we're coming up to budget setting. So are we saying it's likely to be in the next financial year, or are we further off than that?
I think we'll raise it through this round of budget setting because it will be an unachievable income target. We have, mitigated it as much as we can.
Councillor Blackmore.
Thank you, Chairman. I'm a little bit puzzled about the car parking income for Moat Park, because I think we've got a budget for the year of just over 31,000, but we don't seem to have taken any money to September 2017, and I can't quite believe that on page 15, line 123, third line, sorry, second line, Moat Park parking. I imagine we've taken some money, haven't we? Sorry, page 15, in the table, on the left it says Heritage, Culture and Leisure. Second line down, Commercial Projects, Moat Park Parking. And if you go across, you've got 31,000, then a gap for up to September 2017.
Ellie, would you like to respond to that one? Thank you.
The appendix you're looking at is the capital appendix, I think pointed out by your colleagues. So that would have been an expenditure line, presumably for planned works to extend the car park rather than the income. The car park has taken income, but that's reported to Strategic Planning, Sustainability and Transport Committee rather than to this committee.
In that case, when are we extending the car park, and also what are the plans for that? Are we increasing parking charges, increasing size of car park? Any ideas?
So the improvements to the Moat Park car parking are part of the project that is live at the moment, which is for the Adventure Zone, the new pathways and an additional car park, and works to the current overflow car park to make it more sustainable for use. Those works are, we're out with key contractors at the moment, and they are procuring the contractors to do it. So it will all happen, hopefully, before next summer.
So before next summer, does that mean it's going to be 17-18 budget or 18-19 budget, or a bit of both?
It's capital, so it's a bit of both. We've expended some of the capital already on the development of the project costs and lots of professional fees getting design, etc. done. The bit now that's to be done is the actual build. Sorry, I think I've just what I've picked up on that line, the 31,000, actually is not to do with the Moat Park improvements. That is a capital budget that Parking Services had for when we introduced car parking in Moat Park. So I'm not sure whether that budget is still required, and we'll need to take that back and ask them. The work to the car parks is included in the the fourth line down, the 1.15 million, which is the Adventure Zone play area.
Councillor Bettmore.
Sorry, Chairman, can I then go back to my original question? So if the 31,000 relates to increased income, which we were looking at relating to having car parking in the car park, because that's what Mrs. Hudd seemed to imply. Maybe I misinterpreted that, but you said the 31,000 was to do with the car parking target, which is Parking Services, not to do... I'm sorry, I'm really confused. I apologise.
So what I think that budget is, because that's not a budget that's in my control, I think it's a Parking Services capital budget. When we introduced car park charges in Moat Park, there was a capital budget to put all the car park machines in and put some lighting and the associated infrastructure in for the introduction of charges. And I think, but we will have to check and come back to committee, that that's what's left in that budget.
think the officers will come back for some clarity on that for us. Councillor Ells.
Thank you, Chairman. This is probably just confusion as well. The way I understand, or probably misunderstand this then, is things like the capital expenditure to put in the pay machines and improve the car park come out of this committee's budget, but the income from the car park goes to a different committee's budget. Is that right? Okay.
Ellie, are you able to clarify that a little interesting?
Thank you for the comment. I agree it is something that needs clarifying. And absolutely, if it's a budget that parking services would spend, I wouldn't expect it to be reported to this committee. So I will go away and have a look into that, and I will report back to the committee.
Yes, I think we should have an update on that particular. You know, it's interesting to see that we are actually trying to gain income, but somebody else is. We need that clarification. Thank you. Sorry, Councillor Butler.
Thank you, Chairman. It seems a bit too cosy because the target over the next couple of years is to make money, but you know, it just seems too cosy. It seems as if the objective is being met through an ulterior motive.
Interesting comment, Councillor Butler.
Well, it's just that it seems as if, you know, they're trying to save money. We're trying to save money, admittedly, right? But are we fulfilling exactly what is expected of us?
Dawn will come in there first, and then I think Councillor Wilson wants to come in.
Earlier this year, this committee received a detailed report about the capital investment for Moat Park for the adventure zone, the car parking and potential new cafe visitor centre, which set out exactly what the capital expenditure was, what the quantum of the overall expenditure was, and what the income generation and return on investment would be on each of those projects. That report was well received by this committee, and I think there was a unanimous vote to take the programme forward. So it's been very, very transparent. I think the confusion is just on the way the wording is in the capital programme table, which doesn't perhaps relate directly back easily to the projects that we're talking about. But Ellie and I can take that away and look at the wording on there, if that answers the question.
I agree that it can be taken away, but I think there's been such concern that we need to record a form of words, something like, this committee is concerned that it appears that we are paying a capital sum for a service for which we do not get the benefit. I hear what you say. I absolutely understand what you say, that if we agreed a package for the whole thing, that makes sense, but it doesn't make sense if actually they're disaggregated for income. So I think if we express I think we've got to express our concern and say we do want a clear explanation back. That's all. We don't need to. It's not a decision. It's just expressing our concern and getting it in the minutes.
Thank you very much, Councillor Wilson. That'll be in the minutes, and we'll take that forward. Thank you. Councillor Batmore.
Sorry, just one simple question. It refers here to there's going to be a new contractor taking over Moat Park. Did that actually happen, and how they're getting on after the first few weeks?
It is going to happen. Unfortunately, we've had to delay it because the exchange of contracts has taken far longer than we expected it to. I'm not concerned by that at all because the cafes at Moat Park, Cobtree and the museum are both performing above what we expected, as Ellie explained in the budget report. So we're currently aiming for next Monday. If that doesn't happen, it will happen first thing in the new year. But I'm not concerned by it. The contractor's completely committed to working with us and, in fact, attends meetings at least once a week with us.
Thank you very much. Members, any more questions from the committee? I think Councillor Nagy wanted to make a comment or a question. Like to come forward, thank you.
Yes, just a couple of points. I just, with the CAF, it's now making money, obviously, and a profit, and but now it's going to go to a private contractor, so the council won't benefit from any of that profit now, because I don't know the arrangements if we get a percentage of the profit. But it's nice to see the CAF is doing well, so that is under, and I'm assuming that's under our existing management, is it?
So, yes, we have turned it round. The new deal with the new contractor, DAGT Limited, gives us a base rent, this was all reported to committee as well, and a percentage of turnover. So the better they do, the better the council does.
Oh, that's very good news. Good news on that. Yeah, and just have some other things. I did question that because it says at end of October, and as we was in November, I was wondering if that was this year. So I've got that one. And with the parks and open spaces, did we not say we'd just taken on a new manager there earlier? Was new manager? Comes under parks and spaces? Yeah, because I was reading it and it says the variance is a combination of staff vacancies and a combination of oversight. Does that mean we're not taking staff on, or does that mean we're letting staff go? Is that because if we've got staff vacancies, does that mean we're short of people, or we're just not taking people on to save money?
That's Jen Shepherd's department now, and she's not here, so we can take that question back. But my understanding is that she's just restructured her teams because she has now got the Parks and Open Spaces service in full weight, previously split between her department and my department. And so she's been able to make efficiencies and hold some vacancies. I don't believe anybody's been made redundant.
Thank you. And of course, obviously, a lot of questions have been asked, but obviously the committee won't get a lot of those answers tonight because the relevant officers are not here. In the past, all the relevant officers usually turn up for this sort of thing. So most of the questions get answered. Otherwise, if we don't get a lot of answers tonight, it's all just going to be at the next committee, and that'll take even longer. So I was a bit surprised that we're not covering all the questions tonight. Right, that's that one out of the way. And on the market, are we actually, when you read that on page 10, are we saying that the market is never made money and is not likely to make money for the Maidstone, and they were losing it at a loss? And the idea of going to the market, taking the market out in the square, is to try and improve that somehow? Is that the plan?
So the market does make money. It doesn't make as much now as we have as an income target for it. It used to reach that income target, but the trading there has declined. And so we're not making a loss. We are still making a surplus, but it's not as much as the target is. And the ideal of having the farmers market on Jubilee Square and trying to grow that is to try and bring another income stream in to help meet that income target.
I think so is the idea is to bring the rest of the market up here on the same day as well and have just one market and rather than have two?
No decisions have been made on that yet. The farmers market is on a Friday. It's not on the Tuesday when the regular Tuesday market is. Some of the traders have expressed an interest in coming up here, but it is a different type of market, but there is no decision at the moment. We are testing the market, pardon the pun, with the farmers market in Jubilee Square and hoping to grow it organically and see where it takes us.
Thank you, Councillor Nagy. Councillor Ford.
Just returning to the market again, it states that the officers are looking for alternative revenues. When are you going to come back with some ideas for that?
Okay, so that's the farmers market that I've just described, because we've exhausted all of the forms of revenue for the actual market site itself. And as I mentioned earlier, the market hall's doing really well. We're doing more auctions and events in there, and we've really upped the income that comes through that. But the reason we're looking at the Jubilee Square and the farmers market is because there really isn't anywhere else to go with the general market down at the market halls.
Thank you very much, members. Any further questions on this item? before we go and just go over the recommendations. Thank you very much. Recommendations are on page 8 of the papers. I'll just read them through before we note it. Number 1, that the revenue position at the end of the second quarter and the actions being taken or proposed to improve the position where significant variances have been identified be noted. 2, that the capital position at the end of the second quarter is noted. Members, if you're happy, I'll take those two together, and unless there's any dissensions, we agree that it's noted. Noted. Thank you very much, members. Thank you. As we bundle that into the last item, members, just going back to item 12, reference and policy and resources committee, budget monitoring, parks and open spaces, are we also agreed that we note that? Agreed. Thank you very much. Thank you, Ellie, very much. Thank you, members. Move on to agenda item 14, key performance indicators, update quarter 2. Recommendation on page 16 of your papers. Mr. Alex Munden, the Information and Corporate Policy Officer, will present this item to the committee. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chairman. So, good evening, everybody. I'm here to introduce the Key Performance Indicator update for Quarter 2. So this covers the period of July to September. So, performance for Quarter 2, obviously looking at it on paper, you have the summary table on page 17. Obviously, on the face of it, it looks quite negative. So, we've achieved the target for one of the indicators. For another of the indicators, we've missed the target by less than 10%, so we're within 10% of achieving it. And then for the final 3 indicators, we have missed the target by more than 10%. We found that performance improved in comparison to last year for 2 of the indicators, but performance also declined for 2 of the indicators, so it's a slightly more mixed bag in terms of the direction of travel of performance. Rating and direction of travel for specific indicators can be found at Appendix 1, so then if you wanted to see which indicators had improved or declined, the information will be in the tables at Appendix 1. Some positives for Quarter 2. So the percentage of tickets sold at the Hazlitt Theatre achieved its target and significantly exceeded it, so we sold 65% of all available tickets. So the exact number was 10,179 tickets sold out of a possible 15,626. The visits to the leisure centre, although missing its target, was still within 10%. And the visits is quite a strong figure for the leisure centre. And the kind of projects and programmes that they've been running there, such as the swim tag and offering swimming lessons, has paid dividends in terms of reducing the impact of other leisure offers within the town centre. So we're still trying to increase the attraction of the leisure centre. The 3 indicators that missed the target by more than 10% relate to services that are offered at the museum. So these were students benefiting from the educational service, footfall at the Visitors Information Centre and the museum, and contacts to the Visitor Information Centre. So major closures to the museum had a significant impact on all of these, I believe, as the Ancient Lives and the Egyptian Galleries is quite a popular kind of resource that we have there for both school visits and casual visits. And the closure of those and the works that were being done obviously had a significant impact on the attraction that the museum had for members of the public. As these works have now completed and the galleries are reopened, we do expect visits to increase and performance to improve for the rest of the year and for next year. But we have also purchased extra electronic footfall counters for next year to ensure that all entrances and exits are being captured, such as the cafe entrance, and that all individuals are counted for, even at busy times. That's obviously all I have to say about this, but if you have any questions, I'm happy to either try and answer them, or I can take them away and report back to you, if that's okay.
Thank you very much for that report. Councillor Nugget, did you want to speak first before we... Or you're happy. Thank you very much. Members, questions on this one? Thank you. Councillor Batmore.
Thank you, Chairman. I see the Q3 performance report, which I'm assuming is this, but for the current quarter, isn't due to come to us until March. Is there any way it can come earlier? Just because I think if you look at some of the KPIs, shouldn't we be keeping a closer eye on it?
From when we discussed the meeting at the Chairman's briefing, I believed it was on the agenda for the February meeting, but I can't remember the reason why it was... Oh, so... Oh, so actually, sorry, looking at Mrs. Hudd's item, is that we weren't able to make the meeting for the 30th of January because the reporting cycle was too close to actually make the agenda date for publishing, because obviously we have to get it approved at the management or leadership team, but we also have to give people enough time to provide the data and actually prepare the report, and I don't think it was possible to prepare it within that timescale.
Just to say that as the head of service, I look at these indicators every month, and I'm talking to the staff constantly about what we're doing to close the gap. So we don't wait till the quarter to look at what the issues are, and they're discussed with the chair at his regular catch-up meetings that he has with me.
Okay, I'm sorry to be awkward, Chairman, but the figures are quite poor, and I'm a little bit concerned that we're leaving it quite a long time. It just strikes me that by that stage we're well into a next budget cycle, etc. Some of these figures aren't available. We've already picked up on looking at the market because that's not as profitable as it should be, and I'm a little bit concerned that sometimes these things sort of slip away from us. Is there any way we could have maybe provisional figures or something before the beginning of March? Because I'm just wary that we've got budget setting at full council, and I bet you anything that takes place before we'll get this information. So I think in some shape or form it needs to be out and it needs to be available.
Can we...
So we will have the figures available. Obviously, it's just waiting for the formal meeting, but... I mean, I suppose we could, if we can circulate the performance figures to members of the committee, and then obviously the formal report would come on the actual committee date, if that's...
I mean, even an oral report, I think, would be useful, just so that we have something, because it just seems quite a long way away. That's all. Thank you.
No, I can't agree with Councillor Vetmore. I think we do need running information.
Can I make a suggestion that what we do once we've got the figures for Q3, that we circulate them by email to members of the committee, because we won't have the narrative at that point, and I think publishing it at the committee early without the narrative and the time to do the investigation as to what are the issues, what we're doing, wouldn't be helpful, but we could circulate them by email.
I think that would be very helpful to the committee. Obviously, I do meet regularly with officers, and I do get updates personally for what's happening in the committee and certain trends. So, but I think that does need to be shared with members. Thank you. Councillor Perry.
Thank you. I just need something to explain to me this, because it did puzzle me a little bit. When I saw the Hazlitt Theatre, and it sold 65% all available tickets, and obviously that's a plus. Then I see the target of 50%. I may not fully understand this, but only selling 50% of a theatre tickets in the West End, you would not be a terribly good position. I'm just wondering, is there something behind this? Because the target looks terribly low, so anything above that is going to be a plus. And 65% of theatres selling the tickets would not be terribly good for most people, I would have thought. So I'd just like a little background to that. Thank you.
Thank you for the question. Does seem on the face of it a low target. It's the target set in their contract when the contract was written. And so that's the key performance indicator, one of the suite of key performance indicators that Parkwood Leisure have to report to the council. I think one of the reasons it's set low is because part of the contract is that they have to programme new and alternative and challenging programmes and not just things that would be popular and sell out. So not just put tribute bands on every week, for example, but to encourage new programming, new writers and tours. And to do that, you do have to take a risk. Sometimes you'll bring a performance to theatre and you'll sell, a couple of dozen tickets. What it does is it enables you to see whether or not there's an audience development opportunity for new types of programming. So the target's at 50% because it's in the contract, but I would always expect it to be much higher.
From the Chair, I'd just like to comment, because obviously my career was in retailing, but as we all know, this time of year, from now to Christmas, is in retail terms, is the time of year when you make your money. So hopefully the results coming through after this December next year, when we get the results from the Hazlitt, should show, I hope, a great improvement. That's why I'm urging you all to pantomime to go. Thank you. Councillor Wilson.
I'm going to actually agree with Councillor Blackmore that we really do need these. I don't want to repeat what we've already said, but it's going to be very, very difficult. We're going to have, as we move forward, I suspect we're going to have quite a lot of refurbishment, new galleries that we're going to have to sort out. And if I'm looking at the museum, it's without a shadow of a doubt, we all know that the Ancient Lives, that part of the museum, because of the mummy and everything, is one of our most popular areas. So I think I can accept a downturn while that was closed to be sorted out. But I do think that we should learn a lesson from it for the future. I don't think we can afford to, every time we try to do a gallery, see a downturn. You've got to find a way of managing this. But I do accept that this particular gallery was a subject which is one of the key draws to our museum. So it would have had that downturn. I do have a question, though, under 3.4, and that is, I really would like an explanation as to why the system which records the number of calls has been out of order since July. That's 4 months. Why has it taken 4 months to actually, it's a key component of how we're trying to record something, and yet it's been out of action since July. Why? I mean, what is the issue? What's been the problem there?
I'm afraid I don't know the answer to that, and I will find out and report back to committee. I don't know why it took so long.
My last thing is to do with 3.5. If we know that one of the problems is to do with what's happening elsewhere, I would really, really like... I can see this business about we've attempted to increase usage in other areas, but actually there's a more fundamental issue here, isn't there? Which is whether what we're doing for a gym is worth doing at all, or whether we can actually compete, and what are we going to do? Because if this is true, we're going to lag behind every quarter. So I'm really pleased at what's been attempted to increase usage in other areas, but actually you have to start focusing in on the area where you're actually not performing and the reasons why, so that you may have to make again some tough decisions there as we move forward. I don't want an answer now, but I'm just saying I really think that needs close watching.
Would you like to respond to that? Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. I think it would be useful if I do come back on it. I know you don't want an answer now. The performance indicator measure for Maidstone Leisure Centre is a really strange methodology. And the performance indicator measure is, the target is a 5% increase on the figure from the previous year. So if they have a really good year because they've put something extra special on, or had a really bad summer and people have gone in the leisure centre for activities, it means their target next year for that month is 5% higher. Again, it's a contractual target, which to me doesn't really make a huge amount of sense. There's also a ceiling about how many people can go in the leisure centre. It has got a capacity level. And so they are diversifying in the things that they do. They've introduced new activities into the leisure centre, and they're opening up to new markets. They've tried a couple of things that haven't worked as well, and they're looking at how they do compete with the private sector. I'm not concerned at all that they're losing their market share or that they're going to get into any trouble because their figures are falling. I think the measure is a bit of a strange one. And if we saw it dropping considerably on the previous year, then it would have warning bells for me. But I'll keep a close eye on it, and I'm not concerned at the moment.
Members from the Chair, we talk about these things in isolation a lot. Would it be handy or convenient, or if we could arrange a visit to the leisure centre to, have a look at it, inspect it, talk to the staff, and get some ideas? Because we do that in the museum, and that we get some good feedback, and I think it might help to form a picture of what's happening there after Christmas. I'm not saying we all have to go, but I think it might be advantageous to have a look around. I mean, there's normally we can do some aerobics while we're there. Yeah, I'll be going to the board meeting soon anyway, but I just don't want you all left out if you want to go and do some, whatever they call it over there. Councillor Butler.
I'm all for it, as long as I don't have to wear the leotard.
Please don't.
Can I go to the number of contacts to the Visitor Information Centre? When it says contacts, is it people actually physically go in, or is it telephone conversations, or?
So it's all. So it's personal inquiries, telephone inquiries, and email inquiries, which come in through the tourism email contact on the tourism website. This is a base year for us because we've not had this KPI before, and we've not had a dedicated visitor information point in the museum before. So it's been very difficult to count the personal inquiries because they come in as general visitors to the museum. But now we've got the dedicated information point, we'll be counting those figures. So we have the system for the phones, which hasn't been working, so that's been a problem. We have a dedicated email address, so we know exactly which ones are coming in through that way. And from this month, we now know exactly how many people are coming in personally to inquire about visitor information at the museum. So it's all channels. We used to have one for letters, but we don't get any letters anymore.
But without the telephone numbers, it doesn't make any sense, does it? It could be anything, couldn't it?
Yeah, the system's fixed now, so and we're hoping we might be able to retrieve the data for the 4 months it was down.
Yes, I'd be interested to find out what that fault was, and why it wasn't reported. I think that's serious, and if we all had no phones all of a sudden, I think we'd be a little bit up a gum tree. I'm going to ask Mr. Munden before we carry on. Have you had any thoughts or you want to say to the committee, having heard the discussion from what we're talking about? Members, any more questions? Okay, well, we'll go back to the recommendation on page 16.
Sorry, Chairman, can we add an additional recommendation about the summary of performance for Q3, that it can be provided to the committee members by the end of January 2018, please?
recalled. Are you happy to go with the recommendation? With the wording in the minutes. 1. The summary of performance of Quarter 2, 17-18 for key performance indicators, KPIs, be noted. Is that agreed, members? Thank you very much. Thank you. And that concludes our business for this evening, members. Oh, sorry. Okay, is that seconded? Proposed?
Well, we haven't got any language.
No.
I,
your... would you like to...
That the summary of performance of key performance indicators for Quarter 3 be circulated by email to the committee by the end of January 2018.
That was seconded by Councillor Wilson. Is that agreed, members? Thank you very much. That being no other business, are we sure? Declare the meeting closed. I just want to say that our next meeting is on Monday, the 18th of December. So please don't come on Tuesday, the 19th. Thank you very much, just in case. Yeah. And we'll have a bit of tinsel then. Thank you.